You wrote in the book, it's good to know a guy. When you think back, who are a couple of guys you think, man, I'm glad I knew them.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote in the book, it starts with the immigrants, the Italians, probably other nationalities too. I don't know. I am familiar with the Italian heritage. When you go to America, when you get there, and they really didn't know if they were going to land in New York. They could have landed. They could have wound up in Africa someplace. And they paid the captain of the ship with jewelry, silver, uh, sometimes money as well. But why would a captain take money from them when he'd have to be in that country to spend the money? So he would take gold and silver, and they were told in Italy, when you get to America, see the guy that knows the guy that will call the guy to put you to work.
It's a lot of guys.
So it goes from guy, the word guy, because they knew the guy's name, who to see, but they were told never mention his name, just call him the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it becomes secretive. And if you know the guy who knows the guy, so I put in the book that way, that if you know a guy that knows a guy, then you have a shot at getting a job, or you got a shot at accomplishing something. There's always a guy involved.
Always a guy somewhere.
Yes.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah. And usually that guy would take 10% of your paycheck too, by the way, after he got you the job.
You know, there are businesses built now on people collecting finder's fees, sometimes more than 10%, when they find a job placement for you. That's legitimate business. Someone else finds a job for you and they want 10%. It's extortion.
Yeah.
But depends on which corner you're on, I guess.
However, those type of independent employment agencies, they take their 15 or 20% or 25% one time only. But the guys I'm talking about, to see the guy, take 10% of your paycheck as long as you're working on that job every week. So it becomes 500% a year.
Let's switch gears a little bit. You, back in the day, were an accomplished amateur boxer and actually had a shot at making the Olympic team in '56, was it?
In 1956, I was on a tour, the Far East, while I was on active duty as United States Air Force assigned to Strategic Air Command, which we called SAC, S-A-C, under General Curtis LeMay directly, as I was assigned with 249 other airmen to travel around the world with him and as his security. And every one of us were athletes before we got into service. Football, baseball, fighting, wrestling, and we had that type of resume, and he handpicked everyone. However, I traveled around the world with him, yes. And by doing so, I was able to join the United States Air Force boxing team. He allowed that. And I was in the tournament leading up to the Olympics until my mother got sick and my father pulled strings to get me out. After 2 years, I had 2 more years to do, but he got me an honorable discharge under hardship conditions. And because he made himself look bad with the government, and if you didn't know him, this was not the reason was for me to come home to help support my mother. She didn't need my support, but he made it look like he was never home, and he wasn't taking care of things in the family, that my mother needed help with her illness. Not just because of her illness, illness, but because she needed financial support too. I was supposed to get discharged. I did get discharged honorably to help support the family, but really, he was supporting the family, not me. But he said my mother wanted me close to her side because she had malignant cancer, and it was spreading around her body. After my discharge, he kept her alive for 5 more years before she died. Yes. And well, so I never continued on. And in those days, you had to be on active duty to be on the Olympic boxing team. Today, you don't have to be in the service at all to be on the Olympic boxing team. But in those days, you had to be in the military to represent the boxing team in the Olympics. So I never got any further than the stepping stones to the tournament.